Well, if you're tuning in for the first time, I'm Reverend Janie Kelley. This is Unity Spiritual Center, West Texas, located in Odessa, Texas. Today I'm doing the second in a three-part series on writings and books by Emmet Fox. As I said last week, I'll recap just a little bit from last week. Emmet Fox was a divine science minister, and he was born in Ireland, July 6, 1886, and was educated in England. He came to the United States shortly thereafter, and most of his career happened in the United States. He drew in thousands of people. Now, remember, we're talking about the 1930s. In Carnegie Hall and the Metropolitan Opera House, he would draw in an average of 5,000 people, which was huge, absolutely huge for that era. And one of the main reasons that he drew in so many people was because of his healing meditations. His talks never went over 20 minutes, and it's my understanding that his meditations ran sometimes as long as the talk itself, 20 minutes or so. But he realized as a teenager that when he began to study metaphysics and well, back then I'm not even sure it was called New Thought. Maybe there was no name for it. But whenever he began to study symbology and meditation and metaphysics, that people in his groups were getting healings, physical healings, mental healings, financial healings, relationship healings. And so he dropped his electrical engineer career, which is the degree that he had, and went on to be a divine science minister. So that gives you a bit of background, and it's a little different from what I talked about last week about him. Stake Your Claim is the name of my talk for today, and it's based on his book by the same name. Now, this book actually is a compilation of articles and essays that he did during his career. It was not a book that he started start to finish as a book. So each chapter in this book is a standalone reading. So, and, excuse me, it's still available through, at least through Amazon. I checked on that one, but probably, I'm guessing, other, Barnes & Noble and other places as well, because his writings and his teachings are still quite popular, and especially among 12-step groups. A bit of information that I did give last week was that his secretary, Emmet Fox's secretary, was the mother of a young man who helped Bill Wilson get AA started. So it's very compatible with the 12 steps. So I just took a few of the essays, ones that really kind of jumped out at me, and this is what I'm going to talk about. The tagline for this book is, it's Stake Your Claim is the name of the book, and the tagline is The Gold Mine Within. A basis of many of his talks and many of his writings had to do with understanding how powerful we really are, how powerful God has made us, and how we continue to be connected with that power. The thing that really slows it down, or maybe even stops it from time to time in our life, is the fact that we forget that, or we simply don't know it. We can't use something that we don't know exists. It would be the equivalent of in your bank account, if somebody deposited, thousands, maybe millions of dollars into your bank account, and say you never went online to check your balance or anything, and so you didn't know it was in there, so you didn't know to use it. You would still use the amount that you thought that you had because you didn't know it was in there. Just a little a metaphor. Stake your claim. Stake your claim. This is one of the things that he says in the beginning of the book. In the days of the gold rush, well, in case you're not familiar with the term stake your claim, in the days of the gold rush, especially the gold rush I think was in California, this is the one I think that he's talking about, is that when a prospector would strike a vein of gold, there would be a stake that had his marker on it some kind of way. And they would, the prospector would drive the stake in the ground to let people know that that was his claim. Therefore, stake your claim. So that's what we do whenever we step into the power that we know that we have, because we are each expressions of the Most High God. Yes, we are human beings. We are fallible human beings. But when we know down deep within ourselves that we are expressions of God in the world, we are a piece of God expressing in the world. When we know that down deep, yes, we are going to make mistakes and we fall short and that kind of thing. However, when we know that, we move back to that. When we find that we've fallen short, we move back to that power, that knowing, that awe and that wonder. Stake your claim. A quotation directly from the book. In metaphysics, we often speak of claiming our good, and it is one of the surest ways to bring the good that we desire into our lives. If you want health, then claim the health of God every day. If you want prosperity, then claim every day that God is your source and prosperity. If you want peace and harmony, then claim every day that God brings you the peace that passes understanding. All the Father has is yours. Straight from the Bible. All the Father has is yours. So stake your claim. Many of us were brought up to believe that we not only were less than in most cases, but brought up to believe many times that we were, the phrase that comes to me is a worm of the dust. There is a song that has a phrase in it that I do remember singing as a child in church. And the phrase is, "For such a worm as I." And this was pretty much the thought, the idea of keeping oneself down. And as my stepdad used to like to say, don't get too big for your britches. But the opposite is actually the truth. The opposite is the truth, that we are powerful beyond measure. We are so powerful, and many of us were not taught in our youth to step into that power, that sometimes it's a little scary to own the power that we are given, because we are expressions of God. We are expressions of the divine, of the infinite, whatever term you want to put to it. Emmet Fox's teachings, if I had to boil down what I know about Emmet Fox, my personal experience with the readings, he had passed already, I think, by the time I was born, but what I know of his readings, what I get from it is that foundational message that we are powerful and to step into the power that we have. One of the chapters is named "A Door Opens." What he writes in his book are in this book is, here is a direct quotation: "Change is the fundamental law of the universe." Many of us, whenever we just hear the word change, or we understand that something that we've known for a period of time is going to change, or something does change and we're caught off guard and thrown off of our equilibrium, just know that that is a piece of being a human being, and it stems back to when we were cave people, because we needed to see that things were the same in our environment just for survival. Things, if anything was out of place, that meant possibly that someone or something had come into our circle of environment, and in order to preserve our very life, we had to pay attention to those things. So we have a holdover from that. We just naturally want to push things away that are change in our lives. However, change, as he said, change is the fundamental law of the universe. The only thing that stays the same is God. Everything else changes. I had this client. Many of you know that I was a hairstylist before I became a minister. A hairstylist for many years in Houston, Texas, and I worked so many years in the same area that I had clients that had been with me for many, many years, and I knew their families, I knew their children, their grandchildren. I got invited to things, family things, and that kind of thing. And there was this one woman in particular that she's passed now, but delightful woman. And when I was a hairstylist, pretty much it's in my personality, if you will, that I love learning. I love learning new things. I love forward movement and that kind of thing. So I went to lots of shows and lots of classes about the latest hairstyles, the latest products, and all of that. That gives you a bit of background there. One day, whenever I was doing her hair, now she particularly, when she first started coming to me many years prior to this happening that I'm about to tell you, she wore her hair in a certain way. She did not want to deviate from that. And one day she said, I was telling her about a show that I'd been to over the weekend, and she said, "I love it that you go to those shows, but don't try any of that stuff on me." And so the reason that I'm telling you this is because it really is kind of the epitome of how we feel about some things. Delightful woman. But change can be scary. So even those changes that we have decided on our own, that we made a decision that I'm going to do that instead of this. And the decision is made and we're happy about the decision, and when we move into that decision, sometimes the change is disconcerting because it is change, because we're still hardwired not to not to accept change that readily. Another chapter is named The Gold Mine Within. And of course, he here is talking about the power that we have. Quotation from that chapter. "You have a gold mine within you, and you are fabulous. You are more fabulous than the famous mines of King Solomon. In metaphysics, gold symbolizes power." And he moves into talking about the power of I am, the phrase I am. When God was asked, "What is your name? Tell me your name so I can tell everybody who sent me." And God revealed to this person, "I am that I am," meaning God is the I am. And so being mindful of what we place, whenever we are speaking, to be mindful of what we place behind I am. When we say, I am sick, I am broke, I am lonely, when we say those things, the universe hears what we say and says, that person must want more of that, so we get more of what we say, the I am. When we are feeling those things that I just mentioned, if we say, I am, in order to make it not sound like a lie, we could say, I am getting well. I am on my way to robust health, or some type of thing like that. In the beginning, whenever I started doing affirmations, most of them felt like I wasn't telling the truth, and therefore there was some resistance there. There is a way to word these things so that it doesn't feel like a lie. Another chapter is, there is nothing but God. Nothing but God. We make up in our mind sometimes that there are other things, that other powers, but these are constructs of our mind that, when taken into right context, whenever we are paying attention to positive affirmations and that kind of thing, these things just fade away on their own. The Buddha was asked, there's the story, the Buddha was asked, how do we stop evil? Basically, it was what the question was about. How do we stop evil? And he said, there is no need to push against it or resist it. You simply take your attention away from it, and it will die a death of its own, because it has no energy. It's not being given any energy. And he said, much like when, if you look at nature, a flower, like on an apple tree maybe, a flower comes up, the flower will eventually die off and fruit comes up in its place. He said it's much the same, that when we take our energy away from negativity, it will die a death on its own. And the last one that I have on this list, okay, I have a couple more. I'm not ready for the last one yet. Anyway, reorganize your schedule. Reorganize your schedule. He talks about how there again, we want change in our life. We want things to be different, but we sometimes don't exactly know what the big answer is. So if we do things just somewhat different, you've probably heard it said that we can do something as simple as changing the way that we drive to work, drive home from work, change where we eat dinner in our home, or just do something new. New things will shake us out of that rut of the same old routine and help us to move into a place of being able to accept change more, especially whenever we want things to be somewhat different in our lives. Now to the last one. I found this one particularly fun and interesting. The name of this chapter is Take a Vacation from Yourself. It was pretty much a crack up, maybe because I probably need a vacation from myself. But he goes on to say in this, this is a direct quotation, of course you cannot leave your body and go off somewhere, but nevertheless you can change your mind and your habits. Change your mind and your habits of living so that for all practical purposes you are taking a vacation from yourself. And this goes along with what I just got through talking about changing habits, changing routines, and that kind of thing. The more I sat with this, take a vacation from yourself, the more my mind just really picked up and ran with it. Consequently, I now have a vacation planned for myself, an actual vacation away from home. But we get to a point sometime in our lives where we are not liking some portion of our lives, and yet we continue to do the same things over and over. At some point, just shaking up our lives in some kind of way. Do something that we've never done before. Go to a place that we've never been before. Even if it's outside your scope of interest, try something different. Sometimes we find that we're not as disinterested in certain things as we may have thought that we were. Years back, I began taking oil painting lessons, and prior to that, I really knew very little about art. You know, it was one of those things that I don't know art, but I know what I like. But once I started taking oil painting lessons, it's like a whole vista opened up to me. I then would look at paintings and drawings and things like that in a much different way. I ended up, before I left Houston, I was a member of the Houston Art Museum. I'm not even remembering now. Been away so long, I can't remember exactly what the name of it is. One of the things that he said, other than changing an outer habit, is changing inner habit, change a thought. Whenever we are in, maybe gone down the rabbit hole with a negative thought, when we find ourselves there, change it. Do something to change it. Talk to someone about it. Write about it. Just make up your mind to do something a little bit different. Rearrange your work schedule if possible. He goes through many things in that chapter about taking a vacation from yourself. Basically what he's talking about is do something different, do something new. The last one on that that I'm going to talk about, the last aspect of take a vacation from yourself, is he said, when you pray, leave off phrases that you have gotten in the habit of saying, address God or the infinite, higher power, address with a different type of salutation, and have your prayers be simple, very, very simple. Pretend you're 6 years old and you're praying from that 6-year-old. And he said, basically it's amazing what will happen when we do that one thing. Simplify our prayers. If, for instance, if we're wanting financial prosperity, instead of saying flowery things that we've learned around it or affirmations, just simply say, in my life, I need more money. In my life, I need more friendships. In my life, and just lay these things before God in an extremely simple way, and just allow it to be like that. And so I'm going to close with this. It actually is a quotation from Revelation 21:5. Revelation, it's thought that John of Patmos wrote Revelation after having dreams and that kind of thing. If you're familiar with Revelation, you realize that it has really some unusual things in it. But one of the things that is in Revelation that is so very simple, very, very simple, when he was basically listening to God and writing these things down, and it said, "Behold, I make all things new. Behold, I make all things new." When we stake our claim, it doesn't have to be anything flowery. It doesn't have to be complicated. In fact, the simpler the better. When we stake our claim, when we say, "I understand and I believe that I am a precious, precious expression of God." And so now, today, I've decided to step into that power and live like that precious expression of God. And just allow ourselves just to be there, to understand ourselves as powerful beyond measure, powerful beyond what most of us have any idea, including me. I've experienced some things that helped me to know a part of how powerful that we are as human beings. But the power that we have is far greater than most of us have any idea. And this was the sum total, the crux of Emmet Fox's message, that we are powerful. We are expressions of God, and we are always connected with God, always. Next week, my talk is going to be the last in the series of Emmet Fox, and it's going to be Life is Consciousness. And so with that idea and that thought of being powerful beyond anything that we've ever thought, let us move into our time of meditation. Knowing that there is a difference between power and force. We are not talking about force. We're talking about that innate, quiet power that is present within every human being. When we allow ourselves to consciously connect with the divine, with our higher power, some may call it my higher self. Makes no difference what you call it. What does matter is acknowledging it. Acknowledging that power, that presence that is all power, all love, all beauty. I invite you to close your eyes if you haven't already done so. And just feel that power within your body, within your mind. Feel that knowing of who you are. You are precious, a precious, precious expression of the Most High. There is that place in you that is not only powerful but unlimited. As human beings, we sometimes fall short of knowing how powerful we are. We fall short of knowing infinite love. We fall short sometimes of knowing that we are limitless. And so, with that, we just allow ourselves to be gentle with ourselves. Very gentle. treat ourselves as we would treat our very best friend. If your best friend makes a mistake and possibly hurts your feelings or something to that effect and comes to you and apologizes, generally what happens is we say, "That's okay, I know you love me." Do that with yourself. When you make a mistake, just say, "That's okay, I know you love me." And so, as the name of the book indicates, we stake our claim on who we are. We stake our claim and connect with that power. Connect with that love. Connect with that health, prosperity, innocence. We connect with it all. And so we just allow ourselves in this time of meditation just to open our hearts and minds to whatever our higher power wishes to speak to us about today, whatever that might be. With that, now we move into the silence. We continue to keep our hearts and minds open for whatever is our message, whatever is ours to hear. We thank you, God, in advance for continuing to guide and continuing to speak to us, so that we know who we really are. That we are powerful beyond measure. We are loved beyond measure. We have health, relationships, prosperity beyond measure. And so now we end our time of meditation by saying the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Namaste.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining our celebration service today. This is brought to you courtesy of Unity Spiritual Center, West Texas. Your generosity makes this live broadcast possible. Please visit us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Unity of West Texas and click on the Learn More button to make a donation. Also, if you order from Amazon, please join the Smiles program and select us as the charity you support. Thank you, and may God's light continue to shine upon you.